In Rise of the Roman Republic, this is the Eagle has landed scenario. Now this is the big one. There's no grand campaign or anything like that. This is the largest of the scenarios by far. And it's also second, well, third in terms of temporal ordering. I was mistaken. The Spartans don't show up in the three-player scenario. It's Alexander of Epirus, and I'm not playing that one simply because it's really more of a what if. Yes, he landed, but he was assassinated before any real engagement of any significance. So this one, if you followed my SPQR stuff, the early SPQR scenarios, I did a lot of them. In fact, all of them, I think, were from this era. I didn't have any of the Samnite Wars or the Etruscan Wars in there, if I recall correctly. I don't know if they've made any scenarios for that. I have some... I have at least one module, I think one module, that I have not played yet, that I got after my playthroughs, that I think was for the deluxe SPQR, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So what's interesting here is you're seeing a real, in the SPQR stuff at least, you're seeing a real Alexandrine phalanx army on the field for Pyrrhus, and one of the best leaders of such an army post-Alexander. And what we have is a combination of, your phalanxes, your elite cavalry guard, and elephants, all of which factor into this in some ways. So this is the initial setup, minus what goes in Sicily. Now, there's forces in Sicily basically split into three things. Messina has its own little people, the Mamertines, who could be a problem. And then we have the Syracusan Greek Sicilians, and then Carthage holding the western Sicily. None of them supposedly show up on the map until after Pyrrhus crosses into Sicily, at which point there will be, well, an alignment there, essentially. He's probably not going to go in until there's an alignment. Notably, Pyrrhus will be starting off with one of his lambs. He's a level 3 leader, already played. That's to rally his forces. He gets to start somewhere along the Calabrian coast. The Romans start with, let's see, P. Valerius Lavinius over here. Not a terribly bad leader. He has some guile. He's got 2 ratings. He's got the urban forces there, and they're not actually on the board. I don't know what leader I should use. There doesn't seem to be one in the rule book, and I don't want to page through to find one. So he'll be taking Consular Army 8, which has a single double legion. We're using the double legions now, and the values that the forces in a legion have been modified. Let's see what else we have here. There's some others. I believe this is the Field Council, and we're starting to use these Imperium markers because he can't leave Etruria without senatorial acceptance. So he's going to have to make a request to actually move out of that area, and he's pretty useless up there. Over here in Samnium, likewise, we have, I believe, a proconsul assigned there. Interestingly, we have this other force down here, the Campania Legion, which can't actually be moved by the Romans, and it has some special revolt rules, which we'll get to, I guess, in a little bit. The game is going to start with Pyrrhus having a chip and everything else in the cup. And again, it's kind of weird that a proconsul has his own little chit. He's not on his own, but if there were more proconsuls, they're more flexible. There's just some really kind of wacky things with the Roman command levels. Again, we have some cities that don't exist yet. One which is sacked. I'm not sure it's supposed to be... I think it's just supposed to be sacked, because that's what the rules say, but it also says it's been permanently destroyed in the same rule, and those two don't really go together. The alliance table shows a bunch of provinces Roman allied and a couple already allied with Pyrrhus, at least to some extent. I'm not sure what it means to have these guys aligned when their troops aren't on the map. That doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. And in fact, Tarentum has its own special rules where it's not really aligned terribly. They're unwilling to actually... They're the ones who called Pyrrhus into play here, into Italy, but they're not really willing to support him until he does something impressive. And it's kind of weird. I'm not sure that I'm using these correctly. Maybe I should be using Italian strength points the way it's kind of described. I don't know. It doesn't actually make a difference, except if you were limited by countermix here, which wouldn't make a lot of sense either. Okay, let's see. Okay, diplomacy. There's special rules for the diplomacy in this. Eastern Sicily. I kind of went over some of this. Once Pyrrhus takes... If he gets diplomatic control of Syracuse, well, for one thing, that's going to align Carthage against him. He could conceivably get diplomatic alliance with Carthage, and that'll align Syracuse against them. There's a rule that defines that neither one, that he can't control both. And we have a large Sicilian army, or a large Sicilian Carthaginian army, which doesn't raise from within Carthage itself, or within Syracuse, within Sicily, but is actually a bunch of Gauls and Iberian mercenaries being thrown into there. So they'll be sailed in. Let's see what else we have here. The minor allies. Okay, so one thing is the Italians don't raise, the Romans don't raise Italian troops. They're raised through the normal process of legion recruitment. What about other people? Oh, geez. Well, I think we'll have to look for that. We also have naval superiority rules in play here, but for the most part, the Romans have no navy. So these markers, which don't have a minus side, well, I've got them inverted to show that the Romans have a negative naval power there, and that's matched, of course, by the Greek positive naval power. Where it doesn't match exactly, for example, here, where they both have -4, -2, -3, -4, -3, that's an indication of Carthaginian power in that area. Now, as far as I can tell, it's completely allowable to build up navies using the normal naval build rules. You can also reposition naval points between places, which is to say, if the Romans wanted to give up an extra, well, they're not good anywhere, an extra point of navy over here, they could switch to a -4 and then throw that extra point maybe over here where they might need it more. But overall, to me, it looks like the Romans simply are not going to have a potent navy. And by the way, when you do that, you also give extra points and take points away from your enemy. So those are... Where it's balanced is indicating what it should normally be. Where it's unbalanced, it's indicating, yeah, neither side can really do anything with their navies there. And you'd have to put a heavy commitment to raise your own up, and it wouldn't weaken your primary enemy in the game. Elephants, special rules. First time the Romans see them, it's a 5-point bonus for Pyrrhus. After that, though, they go to their normal rules where you have to roll and see what they do to you. And you don't use the table at all. The Romans in Syracuse are each going to be allowed to build one siege engine throughout the course of the game. And Pyrrhus isn't allowed to sack anything. He also has a very good diplomat here. And there's another one here. Assuming Cineas doesn't die, though, I think he gets to use Cineas once a turn, and he's only allowed to use one diplomat each turn, as opposed to the Romans, who could use lots and lots of them, but they kind of suck. All right, what about victory conditions? Victory conditions are kind of complicated in this. So Pyrrhus wins if he occupies Rome. Yeah, that's pretty nice. If he takes Capua, Messena, Rhegium, Syracuse, and Lilybaeum, that should be most of... Lilybaeum is the main Carthaginian place. Syracuse, he's got to take Messena. So he has to pretty much conquer Sicily. And Rhegium, which is down here, and Capua is up here. So he really has to kind of set up his own little kingdom in Sicily and southern Italy for that condition. If he ever has 50 or more victory points, which will be assessed by this chart, and good God, I have no idea. And also, on the first 3 years of the game, first 3 turns, if he holds 6 Italian provinces, one of which must be Campania. And that would indicate that he's just landed in, his initial landing was so effective that Rome would sue for peace. That's also to try to probably divert him from seeking the longer term goals and go after the ones that historically he did try to achieve early on, which was, this consolidation of kingdoms against Rome, getting the Italians to rise up in revolt and join his banner instead. So for the points, each province is going to give 3, and that includes Corsica and Sardinia out there. Syracuse itself is worth 5, Capua 3, etc. So at the beginning of the game, he holds Tarentum, I guess, and the Calabria province. So he's got... looks like some 6 points early on. I may want to mark that with something, I'm not sure what, just to keep track of the points so that I get an idea. Hey, am I anywhere near 50? 50 is a lot, though, right? I mean, 6 provinces, including Campania, is 1, 2, that's 18 plus 3 for Tarentum. Puts me up to 21. Capua will put me 3 more, 24. That's halfway there, so I think that's a pretty hard goal. I think basically what I'd do is go for the early goal here and then turn to Sicily and see if you can win the competition on getting the Sicilian territories. If you cannot, then there's a comparison at the end of 10 years. The feeling being that Pyrrhus would leave after 10 years of not being able to get a dramatic success. And then you can kind of judge, well, has he mostly succeeded or not? And historically, he, of course, did not mostly succeed. All right. That was fast. And Pyrrhus marched right up here. He did diplomacy action against Apulia, got it into his camp, and it's won in his side. Marches up, hits Bovanium. The Romans come out to engage him with their 3rd Consular Army. End up not committing my elephants. Probably a mistake there. I didn't want to commit them because I want that +5 bonus against something more potent than this. This was a much, much smaller force. I had 2-to-1 odds. So that gives me a +2 to the die roll right there. It didn't seem like the time for the +5, but a major victory would have been nice. Ended up getting disorganized on both sides, and I rolled a 9 for Pyrrhus. He's dead. That would be the game. I'm gonna let him live. But yeah, this is a scenario where if Pyrrhus dies, it's over, because hey, he'd leave. So I'm going to fudge it here, but yes, it's a danger to using Pyrrhus in any single combat, is that, damn, he could just be killed fairly easily. We got Milon, who marched over and laid siege to a small city here. I'm going for military control of Campania. Campania is one of the solidly pro-Roman territories, so I feel like I'm not going to be able to get that, and it's important to me to start preparing that. And then the Roman Council, after I got my subordinate moving, came and slammed into me here. Now, I've been withdrawing, but both are good leaders with a 6 campaign initiative, both Pyrrhus and this. Eventually, I fell back to a city. I could have done it back here that I control, and actually Lavinius here decided not to pursue. He failed his role any further. He's allowed to leave Latium. He's allowed to go anywhere in Roman Italy, basically, without having to ask the Senate permission. The Field Council, however, is not given that right. He has to stay up in Etruria, and I guess that's both the Etrurian territories, northern and southern, unless he requests permission. Now, even if I did have to request permission, or have to have permission to go do something, I actually could have violated that and marched off and gone and tried to attack Pyrrhus. The problem with that is, of course, if I don't succeed in that attack, I could be executed for it. So that would be kind of troublesome. He seems like a pretty good leader, actually, although he only has the D combat ability. That's not bad for Romans in this era. Okay, well, the Romans got another Rome Council marker, or another council marker. And they could use it for the Field Council. But instead they march up and throw this under siege. If Pyrrhus wants to stay there, he didn't want to come out and fight in his disordered status, or disorganized, I can't remember the disorganized. There's similar terms with different meanings. And at this point, we got a siege attrition counter, so now he's going to suffer inside the city siege attrition with his rather large army. Of course, the Romans are also going to suffer. We were not clever enough to hide in a port. You can see they're under siege markers. I'm using that because it doesn't make sense to put a strength marker here for the IDS with such a large force present. Okay, so he's going to get a +1 for his disorganized, and that's it. And he's going to take, God, he's got a big army. I gotta remember I rolled a 5 essentially. 29, 32, 40, 42. He's gonna have to lose 7 points of units. Now, I don't want to lose my cav and my elephants, but I am actually required to lose some of them, and I've got to look at the rules on that particularly. It only actually affects infantry. I can take cav losses at 2 for 1. Jeez, something tells me I'm wrong there, but that's all I see. There's no... Oh, I can choose to lose an elephant, and I automatically lose an elephant in addition. So there goes one of my 2 elephant counters. Crap. Page break confused me. I'm glad I did this on video, otherwise I wouldn't have ever thought to check that for the second time. And now for the Romans, I think this is a flat terrain. Shit. And we only get a 2. Flat terrain gives us a -1. So I don't know how big we are. It's probably in the 26 to 40 range. I gotta check for sure. So Army 1. Oh geez, it's bigger than that. 9, 10, 22, 23, 32, 41, 44. And I said I rolled a 1. So I'm going to lose a strength point off of this. And I'll just take one of these. It doesn't make much difference. Remember, I can rebuild them using the consular bonuses, the Legion calls. So I got a real gripe about the roads. First of all, I forgot completely that, hey, this scenario isn't really the latest scenario. There's the Punic War ones, so I may have screwed up and those white roads may not count. Well, here's the deal. The bright red roads are the only ones that are available right now. And I swept across here and down this road. Now, that would have cost me an additional amount of attrition. But now I've just rolled for, and this is the same problem I have with the damn, what the hell is it, Imperium Romanum over there, which is that, you know, there's stuff on the map that has nothing to do with you. I thought it was very clever to cover up the cities with these, but the white ones, they're not for this game. They show up in Carthage and in some other games, but they don't cover any of the period, well, in some other projected games or something maybe. And this is not a game which is expanded by Carthage. That would actually have made sense. You could have made Carthage a one map and a few counter sheets and one of these playbook type things as an expansion to this. But no, that's not what they did. They released it as a whole new boxed game. So this sucker has these stupid white spaghetti all over it. Really all over it. And it's kind of difficult to differentiate between the red and the orange. I mean, not impossible, but at a quick glance, you know, my thought is, okay, red's in play, right? White's in play. There's three different damn types of roads. One of them that's not supported by the game. Had they made an expansion to the Italian stuff, had they decided, hey, Rise of the Roman Republic, it makes sense to add the Punic Wars to that as, you know, as an additional map and some extra pieces, etc. That would make great sense. But no. No. They released it as another whole full boat. You pay for this entire game set. And it makes sense, given that they had to correct the rulebook completely by the 2.0 version and everything. Everything was wrong in this version. Pisses me off. But all the same, you know, even if they were intending that, obviously it's not the case now. So I don't know what's going on, but I just activated this sucker with his consular army, got the right to get out of Arturia, and I can get rid of this. But now I gotta find a way down towards some of the Imperial forces. That's one of my big gripes in Imperium Romanum, is that the game is essentially very, very difficult to play because there's shit on the map that's, you know, not there all the time. In this case, in the case of that game, covering how many centuries it covers, it makes sense. In the case of this game, it does not make sense to have released two separate games where the first one has all this map graphics on it. I hope if they do a reprint that they actually replace the map with one that doesn't have confusing extra graphics on it that are not involved in the play. Knowing it, I can ignore them now. The orange is only in the first and second Punic War scenarios. There's no first Punic War scenario in this game, though. And to tell you the truth, given that those are intended for first and second, level C isn't even intended to be on the Carthaginian map, which was first Punic War. And will fit on Thunderblah or whatever. Oh, I'm sorry, no. Yeah. Yeah, no, first and second Punic War. So this is all stuff for some game later projected that'll probably have its own map, you know, because if you're covering something after the Punic Wars, you're talking about a larger Rome, right? You're talking about a Rome that's engaging in Greece and engaging in Illyria, etc. Or you're talking about a game that's no longer about Rome. That's maybe in a different sector of the world. Annoying facet. The only way it would be excusable is if they did not reprint the maps and put out full box games, if they put out expansion games only. And it would make sense to cut a map out of Carthage, right? You know, say you need this map, but except, well, good luck getting this one, you know. This wasn't the kind of big seller that some things are. This is beginning to anger me a great deal. I sent that council down here and quickly relieved this siege very easily. You see, these guys are disorganized. They're not useless. They took 25% losses to 15. That was only a couple of strength points. All that makes sense in one sense. You don't want this to be a major battle in terms of how it affects the forces around them, etc. What's a little less sensible is that these forces are only disorganized, that they're not useless, that they haven't been completely broken by this attack. That's hard for me to justify in my head. If a small force gets swamped by a much larger force, and we're talking, this was, I think, like 7-1 odds, somewhere in there, not quite up to the overrun level, it can't get too much damaged in terms of its cohesion, etc. It's still a fairly effective force, and yet it still does a disorganization, disorder result to the Roman army. Siege attrition here, and Pyrrhus is out of elephants. I lost that big +5 bonus by playing it poorly. Yeah. It's okay, you should have lost by now, right? The first battle of the game, it was over. And that's kind of a screwy thing with this scenario. It makes sense that, hey, if Pyrrhus dies, there's no point for this any longer, right? He would go home, and probably the Hannibal scenario is the same way. The problem is that there's a 1 in 10 chance every battle that he dies. Unless I'm doing that wrong. Let me see. Maybe I am. You get a penalty for being on the losing side. I didn't realize that. He might just be wounded. And then he wouldn't have been allowed any campaign actions. So that would be a much less chance, a 1% chance, which is far more reasonable than a 1 in 10 chance. And I can live with that. The problem with it is, of course, that actually makes it fairly likely that you're not going to lose any leaders in combat ever. On the other hand, the Romans, the visit from Pluto, I think, is just a single die roll, right? Adds 1 to the Pluto die roll. Oh, he's just unable to... Okay. He'll only be unable to serve. All right. That's all very reasonable, I think. I was much more disturbed before. So we'll imagine that die roll didn't even happen, but we can see Pyrrhus is in a lot of trouble here. We had an augury event come up, and in this case it was the first one, the Mamertines acting up. The Syracusans invite Pyrrhus to seek his fortune in Sicily. Syracuse is automatically activated and allied to and controlled by Pyrrhus. And Pyrrhus is now free to enter eastern Sicily. The Mamertines, however, are now controlled by Rome. Now, as far as I can tell, this doesn't activate Carthage. Carthage will not be activated unless Pyrrhus actually crosses into Sicily to support the Syracusans, but that's where we are with that. Let me see what the last chit is. The last chit's going to be another siege attrition. Not a lot going on there. And at the end of the turn, we took the siege attrition there. Another 4 or 6 strength points off for those inside the city. Just continually weakening. We can see Pyrrhus is pretty much in a hopeless position here. He's lost more than half his force, I think. And I mean, he can come out and fight, but Rome's manpower issues are going to be able to overwhelm him so easily. Now, the other thing in place here, let's see. I don't know what else. I had more to say, but I don't know what I want to do. So basically, we're going to be moving into turn 2, and we get to do some of the kind of bookkeeping stuff with the Roman politics. We also, for the first time, get to play around with the naval superiority where we could shift navies. I don't see any point to that, probably, because I think I could call this at this point. Basically, you know, had Pyrrhus died legitimately, which he probably wouldn't have, the results couldn't be, they wouldn't be much worse than this. I mean, it'd be done, right? The way I've just gotten hosed by the Roman armies moving forward and taking Milan. And you can't really put it all down to, hey, I could have used the elephants in that first battle. That would have helped, but I still would have had a slightly disorganized Pyrrhic army, or a Epir army, facing significant Roman forces. I don't know quite what I did wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have launched an attack on Rome right away. Maybe I should have built up more strength in southern Italy. But the way I was looking at it was, gotta grab lots of provinces, gotta knock the Romans out. I should be good at this point. Well, not that good. Do too much on that. There's a Syracuse army, and there was a chit in here that I forgot to take advantage of. Now, I think there are 2, who knows. The Marmorite army has no leaders or whatnot. I'm going to just go siege them with the Syracusans. That doesn't seem like a bad move. Now, none of this counts, so I'm going through 3, and Marmorite's not actually a province, so I don't know. It's hard to tell if there are actually roads anywhere or not. You know, it looks like there's roads, but now I got to worry about the river lines. So I may have to cross a river line, but not if I head up this way, but then I got to go through a mountain. But I'd have to go through multiple river lines and only one mountain hex. So I'll go through the mountain hex, I think. Yeah. This is obviously an easier route to take than going up here, but not in this game. Okay, what's the terrain here? I don't know. Where the fuck are the costs? God damn it. 6 for the mountain. Yeah, the rivers are cheaper. So that's 3, 4, 5 attrition that I gather. 5 attrition for a 20 force isn't going to be a problem. So we'll march in. And the question is, you know, do we want to come out and attack? We'll likely get beaten in an attack. We have 12 strength points. The Syracusans have so much more. They also have the potential for leadership and whatnot. I'm going to make them roll the die. It doesn't look to me like the Marmosets or whatever the hell they are have any chance of beating them. So I do actually get to set the siege up. Now, the siege attrition had already passed, so I'm just going to put a under siege chit here because there's enough forces there that I'd need to recalculate, right? This is, I don't know, a big town. It's like worth 7, I think. I don't know. I can't tell. No, it's a medium town, so it's worth 3 times the force in there. I can't possibly overcome that with a single assault, so I've got to start sieging it. Now, Syracuse has the ability to raise troops. Now, what's weird is the overall commander is Pyrrhus, I think, but I don't know how that affects allies or whatnot. Does the ally have his own overall commander? That's not absolutely clear to me. I think that's how I want to play it. In which case, well, a siege action actually ends the turn. So we'll just leave it at that. I'm going to plan on attritioning them out. So rolling into turn 2 here. First this unsacks, I guess. like I said, there's some ambiguity about what they mean there, but I'm not going to worry you enough to look in the new rulebook about that. Then I have to make a decision on who's staying and who isn't. And I decided to keep this guy as a proconsul, which is what he was, and this guy's a proconsul. Now they each get an imperium of the area they're in, Apulia or Samnium. I've got another imperium in Campania here for whoever is going to be in consular position 2. I'm planning on that being my field council. These guys both made their survival check, so they get to stay in. I got a new urban praetor. It was pointed out to me, hey, maybe Rome wouldn't have lost if you had left the urban armies there. Yeah, probably. It's pretty damn hard to take a major city. You just can't starve it out the way I did as easily. As we're seeing here, Pyrrhus is able to sit there for a long time, and obviously I could just build up more and more Roman armies and throw them in. That was in the first scenario. That would have made a difference. So this is going to have an imperium of Campania, and I'm planning on making that my field council. My Rome council is not going to have his own command. He may raise forces or something, but I have to pick from the Chit Cup. And the one council that I didn't maintain, I'm throwing in the cup, and now I get to pull these. I don't have the option for a dictator in this game. In the Italian, Central Italian conquest scenario, it was very easy to get a dictator. Here, I have to follow the base rules for that, and I've pushed them aside, but basically it's within 3 hexes of Rome or losing a major defeat. Neither of those happened. So let's see who our Rome council is. We'd like to get somebody good. Well, it's Cursor. We had a Cursor in the other one. He's only going to have 1 chit for council. And now we see the field council, and we're drawing that for this Campania territory here. We have a big army there, and oh boy, we got something lousy. We got Rufinus. Both of these have a guile, and already I'm over. I only noticed that this gave him a place to put all the crap that I don't know. Rufinus is going to be over here, and he has trouble leaving Campania because he's only got that, well, he's got the guile that'll help him get out of there if he needs to. But I don't think I need to do a whole hell of a lot there, and he adds another 1, I believe. I got to look at some of the other options here. Let's see, I got 2, 3 in proconsuls. I've increased the total number of proconsuls. I should be adding a praetor. I didn't have one in the pile last time for the urban legions. They probably can't go anywhere. So what did I say, 3 proconsuls? Yeah. And of course, all my core stuff and these. Now, the only question I have is, are these fixed, or do they get shuffled around the way the Samnites did? I think they're fixed with the commanders they have. I also built up Mr. Magoo here, who, if Pyrrhus goes into Sicily, he comes in with a pile more troops to defend Carthage's holdings in Sicily. All right, the assumption right now is that I've got all the same leaders for the Imperius force, but I may be mistaken about that, and I'll come back if I am. Pyrrhus gets the first chit and comes out of the city, ends up in a 20% to each side draw, but that's enough to get him outside the city. The siege is still going. He hasn't broken the siege, but he's broken his way out. least now I'm not going to just keep dying due to attrition alone. There are a couple siege attrition rolls, one of which cost the Romans 8 units. The other one didn't cost them anything, but cost the city its last remaining point. The Romans are inside here. That'll allow them to start rallying there. Pyrrhus isn't too big a danger right now, and with the siege attrition markers, 2 of the 3 out of the way, it's not that dangerous to let him siege you if he wants to. Consul pick was next, rather than moving my consul, who probably would be evaded by Milon, and then I'd have to try to ask to be allowed out of Campania. Instead, I did a manpower activation, rose myself a new consular army, double army, there, and then used my guile to get a diplomacy in Brutium. One thing I didn't notice with the modifiers here, the more something's opposed to you, the easier it is to draw it towards neutrality. Once something starts becoming allied with you, it's going to be tough to push it into the final box. So for example, this ends up being a +3, which is a penalty on the chart. Number of alliance boxes in favor of that player or against that player's interests. So it's hard to use diplomacy for the final steps of something, I guess. I'm not sure if that's what was intended there. I wish I had a 12.34. Let's make sure I'm doing this right. Oh, geez. I could only send one because I only had one guile. I actually thought, oh, I'll just keep using my continuations. Well, I have a continuation that I could have used, but I decided to stay in Rome and just pass on it because I want to train those troops up to veteran quality. I have enough troops in the field to handle what I'm doing. I don't need to send more out at this point. See, this doesn't specify it very nicely. Number of alliance boxes adjusted in favor of that player or against that player's interests. The only way I can read that is the further they are from you, a minus to the die roll, and that's good. That gives you more pluses. If they're in your favor, it's more likely you get a disaster, which means to finally sway a side over to your side, you kind of want to use a military victory or something to push at the final space there. I forgot there was another siege underway, so I had to take the 2 attrition rolls there. Now I've got to decide what to do with the Syracusans, whether they want to actually try to launch some sort of assault against the city or just keep blockading it. What I can do, I'm judging that each minor power has its own overall commander. I don't know if that's legitimate or not. See, it seems silly to me that I'd have to use Pyrrhus's troop production to cause Syracuse to generate troops. That's what bugs me. Now, it didn't bother me so much, I don't know with what. If Pyrrhus has like allies out here that he's gathered to his cause, that doesn't bother me at all. The old Samnite scenario, there weren't anything like that. The allies in that didn't generate new troops. So I feel like these guys have their own overall commander. I don't know if that's a legitimate view for it, but I think that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to raise troops for Syracuse as this. You know what? We haven't done that yet. I believe it's pretty simple. We just get the forces as listed under the manpower levels. You can place these inside a city under siege. Didn't realize that. Okay. So here, while there are a few provincial leaders, i.e. the Samnite Syracusian or two, most provincial contingents have no specific leader. Such forces, usually allied to a major participant, may be moved by the parent player's OC. I think that's a sign that maybe I would be doing that. So anyway, what I worry about for this is I look here under the that's eastern Sicily, and it doesn't produce troops. Syracuse does, however. 6-1 in Syracuse. Now, I'm allowed to build a siege engine. And I don't know if that's covered in here or if it's in the other thing, and I'm going to have to look that up, because I don't see it in here. I'll look in here. I'll be back. The rules on siege engine. For this scenario, it says only Syracuse and Rome can build them. In the basic rules, there's rules on siege engines. It doesn't tell you how to build them. There's rules on manpower. It doesn't tell you how to build them. I'm not looking at the 2.0 or the 1.1 rules or whatever the hell they are, because I'm going to fudge this shit like so much. You know, I spend 10 minutes looking for a rule, and I'm just sick of it by this point. The scenario itself actually goes into them. Well, I told you it says Syracuse can build them. The one place that's covered is the Romans can replace legions with siege engines. They can replace them on a one-for-one basis. I'm looking at what Syracuse built is about equal to a legion, or what they could build. So if I can find the damn thing, I'll put it on the board. If I can't, fuck it. I found a Roman one, and I'm using that for now. I know there's a Syracuse one. I know I pulled it out of the damn bag, but I'm getting sick of this shit. There's just, you know, there's basically almost no reason that the different counters are distinguishable by nation, and it's really beginning to piss me off, some of the design decisions that were made here. So, you know, for example, legions are always pretty much controlled by legions. Why not just strength point markers? I don't know. I mean, I really don't know, but I'm getting sick of the sorting problems I'm having with this, the quantity of shit that I have in here, and this is not the first time I've lost a counter, and I'm sure it'll show up, but it's just really getting to me. A couple unimportant plays, including recovery over here by this unit. Nothing too earth-shattering. What is it, a proconsul, I think, for 2? No, the consul got another activation. He marched into this mountain space here and attacked Milan. Well, Milan is a total Pyrrhic victory. Plus 10 on the die roll. Seems impressive as hell. I end up losing, first of all, some through attrition from attacking. No biggie there. That's to be expected. But then I don't remember what it is. I get the asterisk result, the sort of the smallest possible positive result you could get in combat. In fact, you cannot get a dash. There's a 0 up here on the, you know, if the defender is huge. There's maybe more than 1. But the little asterisk means you roll a die and you lose that many strength points, but no more than 5%. Well, 5% of a fairly large force is still somewhat significant, whereas I caused 1 casualty to the damn Epirots. I did get a leader loss check, which resulted in an injury. He gets to come back next turn. It's totally worthless to hunt small forces. It just, at least with large forces, it just completely does not work in this game. And there aren't really small forces. For example, the Romans, the smallest they have is a legion, which is, you know, 10 strength points or so. Which against 3 or 4 strength points might be a fair fight. But here, it would have been 9-to-1 odds and an automatic overrun, except for the mountainous terrain. That precludes being able to do an overrun. Okay, we push here into turn 3. I can get another one on the video. I'm going fairly quickly. Pyrrhus moved back here. He's recovered fully since then. The Romans, another proconsul action. lay the siege here. I have to own 2/3 of the cities in Apulia to put it under military control. So that's what I'm going for. That's not very easy. And it doesn't do anything to break the political control, but by having military control, it means Paris won't be able to raise troops there, so that'll be of some value. The only things he has under control are Calabria and Apulia. Calabria, well, and Syracuse, but that's something separate. Calabria, he can only produce Tarentum forces. If he can't win a battle ever, he's not going to succeed in that. I have my leader, I guess my crappy leader here. That way I can move those forces. He'll be coming back into play with his forces. Rome itself, well, this siege is continuing. We had another siege attrition marker. It didn't hurt this one at all. This one, well, the whatever they are, Messalinians, I don't know what they're really called. It's close to that. We can look it up. They I don't know where they are. Mamertines. They're just decreasing slowly. There's really nothing that can be done about it. Syracuse will win this fight no matter what. They have no leader. They can't come out and fight the Syracusans, and they will be starved out. It's simply a matter of that, because only Syracuse can rebuild forces. Those things I don't think have. So Syracuse has a troop value. Messina does too. However, there's restrictions on putting things in besieged cities. If I can remember what they are. It's impossible to remember everything in this game. Nothing's terribly intuitive. It all feels very much like a CDG or a point-to-point game in so many ways. The movement, the combat, everything. It's all very much of that nature. And I used to like games like this a little bit more, but too many of them have come across my radar that have had these kind of more fluid and innovative systems that are all slightly different from each other. Back when it was just Imperium Romanum and Druid and a couple of others from that era, it was easy enough. But now every CDG has this kind of rule with special rules for intercepts and this, that, and the other. And, I can't keep them all straight. It's gotten too difficult. Starting turn 3, just about the same alignment. Basically, I replaced the Roman field councils. The field council here, Carnucadius or something like that. I can't read these guys. Carnius. Not particularly good. And now the Rome council with his veteran units is Claspina. And definitely not a particularly great choice there either. At least they have guile, which means they can do diplomacy, right? Well, for the Rome council. It's kind of hard to justify doing anything with the field council. He's been given Campania as his imperium, which means he has to beg to get out of there. Now, he has advantages to getting out of there, and the Rome council doesn't have to make any begging. My 2 pro-councils have remained the same. I'm going to keep working on Apulia with the one. The other one, he's actually my better military leader, but I don't really see too much value in trying to do anything with him. In fact, I might want to throw him back in the cup just to be able... You know what? Those actually... So the Rome council's fine. Did he only get 1 double legion? I think he was supposed to get 2. Oh well. The proconsul actually cannot be that. He's actually got to be a praetor, which is going to screw things up. I have pro-praetor counters because he only has one double legion there, which means, who is that? Consul 3, that's up here. Yeah. That means he's going to get I think he's only a 1. Yeah, he was one of the proconsul markers. He comes out, and instead I put another praetor marker in, which is kind of interesting because the urban praetor has a marker, which means, I think he only has one, which means, they're pretty lousy. What that means is, well, now I have a couple of counters that have to rely on him, and the proconsul counter only goes for him. He's got 2 of them. Otherwise, I would have been concentrating through Apulia. So he may try to leave his Imperium just in order to, continue capturing territories in Apulia and putting a hem in on Pyrrhus. Pyrrhus is going to have to come out at some point again, but he's hoping he'll be able to raise some troops from Apulia at least. There's not many other places he can go. He's not strong enough to go face Sicily even, I don't think, which is just painful. I think we got a first here. I've done corrections in a lot of videos, but usually it's of the game I'm looking at right now. The prior scenario, Rome should not have actually been able to fall as easily as they were. Troops should have been able to be raised in Rome. I'm looking at, Kyle pointed this out to me actually, I'm looking at the something that I was trying to find. Placement of Roman manpower. The newly raised double legions can be placed in a Roman city or a Roman-controlled province. They may not be placed inside a besieged city. Exception, a newly raised AL legion can be placed in a city in any Roman-controlled province on the map. The RLs must be placed as above. Well, I think what that's intending to say, and I saw the may not be placed inside a besieged city, and the exception didn't make sense enough to stop and read it, I guess, or something. But yeah, what it looks like to me is you can build the RLs in Rome, even if it's sieged. You must build them in Rome. And it kind of makes sense. There's plenty of Romans who could have defended the city. Oh well, sometimes there are manpower shortages and stuff. Otherwise, Republic of Rome wouldn't end in a collapse, right? So we'll just, there's no way to go back and deal with it. But we'll try to remember that the RLs, the regular legions, show up in Rome no matter what. Some kind of cute mechanisms in terms of Pyrrhus's turn this time. He opened up with a diplomatic action, went into Lucania. He needed to take risks. Yes, he had a +3 on the table because it was all the way over there, but his diplomat's very good. So he managed to actually convert them over. Then he did a manpower action. That raised some more troops in Calabria, but those are just Taurentiums. He can't use them. But he also got Apulia and Lucania, and these are just the amounts that are listed off the chart. There's no die rolling or anything weird on that. You just get a certain amount. Then he got another continuation, and he marched over to go grab these Italian troops. He gets an automatic continuation to march them back home. Of course, I have to take attrition after that. Then I'm going to roll for a continuation to march up and join these with the whole army and basically try to face the Romans with a fair-sized force. I'm not going to have all my fun toys. My elephants are gone. My elite cav is weakened. I will not get any more Imperial troops, but the Italian allies might help tremendously. Okay, and Pyrrhus then managed to actually strike all the way up here on that one set of continuations, or one action phase. Defeated Lavinius. That frees up his Taurentians. Unfortunately for him, he lost his little buddy, Megacles, who gave him an extra bonus in battle, because he's one of the few leaders who has a subordinate rating. which allows him to add 1 to the combat rating. It did improve the political status of Campania as well as Samnium, win some more battles, some more good stuff could happen. Okay, oops. My propraetor over here, given the Samnium territory, well, he marched out of his area and went and attacked Pyrrhus. He lost pretty badly. Took 30% losses to 2 units to the Pyrrhians. I forgot to ask the Senate for permission, so he's probably censored. He's got a +3 for an enemy victory other than a major one, and no other effect. He's got a roll less than his campaign rating. 6. That is probably not less. So he's just been executed for his bad behavior. And that's a shame. He was a good military leader, but I just forgot completely about asking him. I think that's quite common in this game, I would guess. If I was playing opposed, I would always be forgetting to do that. Rome tried to raise replacements, not the reinforcements to the legions, not new legions. And I got a kind of crappy roll and had some penalties. Penalty mainly because Italian provinces are held by the enemy. And I only ended up getting 4 strength points. I upped Legion's consular army number 2 over here. I've got the plan of kind of hitting through here and trying to strike that. Then I tried for a continuation, didn't get anything, so that's where we are. It's going to take a while if I explain everything, but somehow I'm more in the mood for it right now. Okay, so mainly everybody's just been recovering over here, including Helenaeus, Pyrrhus's son, showed up, basically because the Megacles counter chit pole was drawn, and he's able to replace the leader using that chit pole for that leader. I've got to remember to actually replace that. I'll do that quickly here because he's dead and can't be brought back in. He's a lousy leader and serves little purpose, but could go command another force conceivably. One thing that you can't do with Pyrrhus or any of the non-Romans is lots of manpower events. I thought you could kind of, because the Romans can do as many as they like, but Pyrrhus can't. He can do 1 per turn. So the production that he got off these 3 provinces, that's all he's getting for this turn. We also saw a siege attrition, which hasn't finished things off, but it's finished off the troops that were present there in Messina, and now, you know, we're just working down through that 3-point thing. So it should be pretty easy to capture that city as well. There was a fair-sized force there, but, you know, things disintegrate pretty quickly when they're under siege, especially when the naval power is against you. Okay, a few things happened. One is, one of the first ones was an augury, Cineas. This gives a -2 bonus to diplomacy die rolls just for the remainder of the turn. Well, I've done my diplomacy, so that kind of screws me, because if this comes up again, Cineas dies and I get his other side. For other actions, the Trentines came up here, laid siege to the Romans. In the progress, we had another siege attrition come, and Messina has fallen. That's worth something. This is only turn 3, so right now I have 3 provinces. If I could, 4 for Sicily, 5 for Messina. It actually is a province. If I could get another province, I think I have a victory if I take Rhegium. But it has to be by the end of this turn, and that looks unlikely. And turn 4 ends with this consular army marching into Lucania and laying siege to, whatever the hell his name is here, Milan. And then the armies more or less recover. There was a siege attrition, some other counters that didn't matter. For example, the Syracusans got an activation. They can't cross into Italy, and they, just because they're not allowed to for the scenario, and they don't want to go into the Carthaginian territories, because as soon as they do so, they trigger Mr. Magoo coming in. That's about it for this one. Didn't end up as long as I feared, and we'll move into turn 4 and reassignments of the consuls, etc. See how that all works out.